All right, we are live. Hey, everybody, Chuck Holton here, coming to you from sounds like I'm in a toilet, but this is actually the club in the Houston airport. I've been here twice in the last 2 days. I flew back to Panama last night and then turned right back around and flew back up here on my way home for Thanksgiving. Don't ask. It just, that's how it worked out. So I wanted to listen. We're going to talk about this. The media is reporting that we're having that there is now a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hezbollah, but that's not true. There's not a ceasefire agreement, and so I'm going to give you the truth of what we are actually looking at here and why it is really being played up by the United States to be a whole lot more than it actually is. And so we're gonna get into that right away. But you're going to want to stick around for this because you're not going to hear this from your mainstream outlets. You're gonna, I mean, if you what you have to do is really dig into the details of this agreement that's been come up with, and also you've got to realize that Hezbollah hasn't really been involved at this point. So this agreement that we're talking about is a truce agreement that's been agreed to. It's not a full ceasefire. They're hoping that it will become a full ceasefire, but for the time being, it is a 60-day truce. And the agreement has been made between Israel and the United States and the United Nations and the government of Lebanon, but not by Hezbollah. So Hezbollah has not agreed to this. Hezbollah is a political party within the Lebanese government, but they are, as you know, driven by Iran, and they are not beholden to the Lebanese government in any meaningful way. Now, it may be that they will abide by this, even though that they have not been, have agreed to this. As a matter of fact, if you look at the things that Hezbollah has put out, what's left of Hezbollah lately, it has been very belligerent that there's going to be all kinds of payback. And if you look at what Hezbollah has been doing over the last couple of days, they've fired more than 500 rockets and missiles and drones into Israel over the last couple of days. And so that's obviously, pretty aggressive. Now, for their part, Israel has been doing the same thing. They've been getting pretty aggressive, just taking out everybody on their target list before this truce comes into effect. But you need to understand that if you hear that being reported that there's a ceasefire agreement in Lebanon with Hezbollah, that is not correct. The agreement is between the Israelis, the United States, the United Nations, and the Lebanese government. Now, the Lebanese government, that what they've agreed to is they've agreed to send troops into the southern part of Lebanon and to make sure that Hezbollah leaves that part of Lebanon and goes north of the Litani River, that Hezbollah does not have any military infrastructure left that is below the Litani River. Now, I have a map of that I'll show you here. This is from the New York Times. Let's see if I can find that. This is the map okay, so you can see here the area where that says the Lebanese army. They're supposed to send their troops down into this region between the border and the Litani River, which is about 20 miles north of the border. And Hezbollah, the Lebanese army will have troops there to make sure that Hezbollah does not commit any acts of violence against the Israelis from there. But Hezbollah has, now I'm not trying to be a downer here, but I want to make sure you understand what this truly means and what it doesn't mean. Okay, so to start with, Hezbollah wants a ceasefire, they want Israel to stop shooting. They might not want to stop shooting, but they want Israel to stop shooting. And that's because they have been just decimated over the past couple of months. Obviously, you've seen how Israel has decapitated Hezbollah, literally taken all of their senior leadership out. They have harmed many of the lower level people. They say that about 3,700 terrorists have been taken out during the course of this conflict in Lebanon. And that's, you compare that to like 70 Israelis that have lost their lives in the conflict. And again, just shake my head, guys like Colonel McGregor and Scott Ritter are saying that Israel is losing in the north. I'm not sure how that looks like losing. And it's not like there's no proof of what's happening in the north. I mean, I put up over at chuckholton.com today video of IDF troops on the Litani River. They made it up to the Litani River today, and so they have pushed all the way north, and they're successfully up there. Now, some of these naysayers have said, well, yes, but whenever they push into Lebanon, they have to pull right back out again. It would probably take them a good solid day to move troops from the border to the Litani River or back. So it's not like they can push into the Litani River and then pull out and camp out in Israel overnight. If they could do that, it would be even more of proof that Israel has won, because they'd be able to move around that easily inside Lebanon. That area has seen dozens of villages completely decimated, just wrecked, because they were essentially military bases for Hezbollah. They more than 40 of them that are ghost towns in southern Lebanon at this point. And so, again, Hezbollah, we heard probably a week and a half ago that they had received permission from Iran to seek a ceasefire, because Iran is looking at all of the money that they have poured into Hezbollah and saying it's all being destroyed. The Israelis are finding and destroying hundreds of rocket launchers, tunnel systems. They hit a dozen command centers yesterday. Today, they've been hitting all over the country, but especially inside Beirut. And at one point, the IAF, the Israeli Air Force, struck 20 targets in 2 minutes time. And there's a drone shot of the whole thing where you just see boom, 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 boom. And this is massive. They took out all of the bank branches, all the branch locations of one particular bank today, because that bank has been used to fund Hezbollah operations. And they let everybody know first. That's why there's so much good video of this stuff happening, because when Israel comes out and tells them, okay, we're going to blow up that bank over there now, everybody gets back from the bank and turns on their phones and just waits and films it as it gets blown up. There were so many strikes that happened in Beirut today. Even though there's this talk of a ceasefire, there are tens of thousands of people who are fleeing the city of Beirut just because everything's blowing up. So that is not what losing looks like, folks. Israel is winning this fight. And but it just, like I said, it bears repeating that Hezbollah was not involved in these ceasefire negotiations. And the agreement that has been reached is essentially a unilateral agreement on the part of Israel because they're the only belligerent party that has agreed to it. And so at 4 o'clock a.m. local time in Israel, the IDF is going to stop shooting things, stop blowing things up, and they're going to pull out, start pulling their troops back. So within 60 days, they've got to pull all their troops out of Lebanon. There are already, we're seeing videos today of large convoys of Lebanese army military equipment. Much of it you might recognize because it's American-made equipment that was given to the Lebanese army as a part of the $300+ million that we give them every year. And then that equipment and those troops are going down south of the Litani River to essentially keep Hezbollah from coming back. Now, this doesn't mean Hezbollah can't strike them from somewhere north of the Litani River. They have missiles that will do that. And so you understand this agreement being one-sided, being Israel agreeing to stop fighting Hezbollah, is not necessarily the end of the conflict up there. But it may very well give Israel some political capital if Hezbollah continues attacking Israel from north of the Litani River. Okay? So the Israelis, I just want to talk about the, let's talk about what the agreement actually says, okay? So here's what we understand about this agreement. It's an agreement between Israel and the United States and the UN, UNIFIL, and the Lebanese army. The Israel and the United, this is from Amir Tsarfati's channel. He says Israel and the United States intend to share sensitive intelligence concerning violations, including any infiltration by Hezbollah south of the Litani. The United States may share information provided by Israel with other third parties like the Lebanese government or UNIFIL to allow them to address the violation. That's not great, but I would imagine now that Israel is going to address the violation if they can't get some help from the Lebanese army to do it. I'm sure they trust the Lebanese army about as far as they can throw them, and that's not very far. So the U.S. recognizes Israel's right to respond to threats coming from Lebanese territory in accordance with international law. And okay, so this is a change. What we've been hearing up to this point is that, we were talking about yesterday, Israel would have to run any attack they wanted to make into Lebanon. If they saw some Hezbollah fighters that were setting up missiles to shoot at Israel, they would have to get a hold of the United States and ask the U.S. permission to bomb that site. And if they didn't get permission from the United States, they couldn't do it. Well, that is not in the final draft of this agreement. The United States recognizes Israel's right to respond. Israel promises to alert the United States if they're going to strike whenever possible, but not every time. So the language of the agreement, this truce agreement, gives Israel enough leeway that they can strike inside Lebanon without letting the United States know if they feel like it's necessary. Or if, because it's a very immediate thing, they see a big rocket launcher set up and they can just bomb it first and then tell the U.S. about it later if they need to. And the United States is obligated to cooperate with Israel in order to curb Iran's activities in Lebanon, which includes preventing Iran from shipping more weapons into Lebanon or people. So anything that's coming from Iranian territory through Syria into Lebanon is going to have to it's going to have to spontaneously combust. And Israel will make that happen. And the United States has agreed to assist Israel with that. If we see something coming in, I guess that might mean that even the United States might actually make something spontaneously combust in Syria if they catch stuff that's getting shipped in or smuggled into Lebanon. Okay, that's pretty. That's very good for Israel. This so far is not looking like a real bad deal for Israel. We'll talk more in just a second about what's good about this and what's bad about this for Israel. Okay. Now, in the southern region, Israel reserves the right to act at any time if it sees violations, whether or not they get permission from anybody to do it. But again, they've agreed to at least alert the United States ahead of time whenever possible. Okay? Israeli flights can continue over Lebanon. Israel can continue to do surveillance, drone flights, whatever, over Lebanon. But this is interesting. They have agreed to make those flights not visible to the naked eye as much as possible, and to avoid breaking the sound barrier. Because as you might know, that in the past several months, they have often flown fighter jets very low level, faster than the speed of sound, right over Beirut to cause big booms from them breaking the sound barrier, just to intimidate and warn people in Beirut. And so they've agreed to stop doing that under this agreement. Okay? So what's good about this and what's bad about this? Well, what's good about it is that Israel managed to make this happen in a way that does not obligate them to get permission from anybody to keep their people safe. Okay? I don't think that's even the best thing. Again, this is all assuming that Hezbollah chooses to abide by this agreement, because, as I mentioned a couple days ago, there's not much in this agreement that is any different from previous agreements they had in 2006 or 2011, 2014. So, the fact that Hezbollah is agreeing, that Lebanon is agreeing to make Hezbollah pull back behind the Litani River, well, that sounds great. But that's exactly what UN Resolution 1701 said, and it was drafted in 2006. And it never worked. So why it will be different this time is anybody's guess. Part of the reason why it'll be different this time is because, it'll likely be different, is because Hezbollah is on its last legs at this point. If they've had more than 80% of their rocket and missile inventory destroyed or fired, it's no longer there. That's good. If their entire command structure has been wiped out, that's good. And so Hezbollah is really needing a break at this point. And that's why it's probably likely that they're going to go along with this. But that also leads to people like Ben Gvir and others on the right in the Israeli government are saying, why are we agreeing to a ceasefire up there when we're winning? This is our opportunity to do to Hezbollah what we are doing to Hamas in Gaza. But Now, be that as it may, there are some good reasons why Israel is disposed to going along with this. Number one, they want to focus on one thing at a time, and they would really like to turn their focus more toward Iran and not have to fight Hezbollah for the time being. Number two, this should, and emphasis on should, allow Israel to start moving people back to their homes in the north. And that is a big political promise that Netanyahu has been making. Netanyahu, as far as I know, has not ever claimed that they were going to destroy Hezbollah like he has claimed they would destroy Hamas. You know, that we will not stop, that this war won't be over until Hamas is completely destroyed. He hasn't said that about Hezbollah. But what he has said is that we will not stop until we make it safe for our people to go back to their homes in the north. This agreement, if it holds, may accomplish that, and then they can turn their attentions to dealing with the West Bank, dealing with Iran, dealing maybe with the Houthis even, and not have this constant barrage of incoming across the border from Lebanon. So in that way, this could be a really good thing. Now, just for those of you coming on that haven't heard, there has been an agreement reached for a truce, not a ceasefire. And the difference is that a truce is for a set period of time, 60 days. And they're hoping that it will convert, they'll be able to negotiate it into a permanent ceasefire at some point in the next 2 months. But as of yet, it's just a truce. And this truce is one-sided. Only Israel has agreed to stop fighting. Hezbollah has not. Now, the Lebanese army has agreed to encourage Hezbollah to stop fighting by sending troops into the southern part of Lebanon. But remember that about half of the Lebanese army is either friendly to Hezbollah or is Hezbollah. They moonlight as Hezbollah. So this is kind of, hiring the fox to guard the fox house. That you're hiring the fox to guard the hen house, whatever. So it just remains to be seen whether or not this will actually hold. But it's supposed to take effect at 4 a.m. local time this morning, which the current time in Israel right now is, where's my app? Current time in Israel is 11:25. So in about 4.5 hours, this thing is supposed to take hold. Now, in the meantime, in the next 4.5 hours and overnight, Israel has been absolutely hammering Lebanese targets in Beirut, in Sidon, in Tyre, in the Bekaa Valley, all over the place, just hammering targets at a rate that we haven't seen yet. It's, this close to just all-out war, okay? And Hezbollah, even just a few hours ago, was threatening, because of these heavy strikes, to respond in kind. And that, we believe that Hezbollah has been already sort of firing off as many rockets as they possibly can. They just are so degraded that they're not really able to fire off as many as everybody thought they would. but they've still fired about 500 in the last 2 days, and that's a significant uptick from the several weeks before that, where it was actually going down. We had seen about a 30% drop in the daily number of rocket attacks from Lebanon by Hezbollah over the previous couple of weeks, up until 2 days ago. And then it really ramped up. And that's likely just in advance of this. And it probably is actually good news, because it may signal that Hezbollah is trying to fire off whatever they can before this truce takes effect. And that might mean that they plan to abide by the truce. Now, theoretically, if they don't, you would see fights between Lebanese army troops and Hezbollah in the south. And I say theoretically because the likelihood of that actually happening is somewhere close to nil. It's just likely not going to happen. Excuse me. But that's essentially what the Lebanese army has agreed to do. They've also agreed to find and dismantle Hezbollah infrastructure south of the Litani River. Without neutral third-party presence being there with the Lebanese army to ensure that they do that, I think the chances of them actually doing that is pretty slim as well. And that's what the UNIFIL forces are supposed to do. They're supposed to be the neutral third party. But if we've learned anything from this conflict, it's that the UN troops, whether they're in Gaza or Lebanon or Syria or anywhere else, are definitely not neutral or unbiased. They are all in the tank for the Palestinian cause and against Israel. So we can't trust them. Nobody trusts them. And why the United States continues to give them almost $400 million a year is a real mystery. That may change under Donald Trump. And so we've got 50 couple days until he gets into office to see what he's going to do in terms of pressuring the United Nations to stop supporting terror. Okay? Now, I've been putting up, there's a lot of video that's out there. Like I said, you hear guys like, Scott Ritter and others that are claiming that Israel is losing this war, that their whole country is about to collapse, and that every time they go into Lebanon, they're getting their heads handed to them. Well, there's plenty of video that proves otherwise. And I cannot put that video up on YouTube because it would get this video demonetized. But I am putting that video up over at chuckholton.com. So if you want to go see video of Israel blowing stuff up in Lebanon and in Gaza, then you can go and you can see it at chuckholton.com. I've also got a whole bunch of members-only content over there for people who want to support our work. And if you're just joining us, if you don't know about what the Hot Zone is all about, it's not just about going to the world's hottest places and bringing you the truth of what's happening on the ground. Next week after Thanksgiving, I'm going to head over to Ukraine for a little while, up until Christmas, to bring you the truth of what's happening there. But that's not all that the Hot Zone is about. What the Hot Zone is about is going to the places where people are having their worst day and doing something about it. And not just me doing something about it, but enabling you to do something about it. So going to those places and introducing you to the people who are being affected by the war, the disaster, fire, flood, earthquake, whatever, and then giving you the ability to reach through this modern technology, something you can't do when you're watching CNN, and actually touch those people's lives wherever they are and wherever you are. And so when we go and we show you what's happening in Israel, or we show you what's happening in Ukraine, or we show you what's happening in Burma or in Colombia or in Panama, or any place, even in the United States, in North Carolina, whatever, we give you the ability to reach out to those people and not just give them money, but to actually get to know them. And there have been many times where we've ended up connecting our viewers with the people that I interview and letting you get their Facebook profile and follow them and continue to follow them for years. And so it's about making the news a little bit less depressing, because the news just shows you all the things that are wrong in this world, and it doesn't really give you an opportunity to do anything about it. And that's pretty depressing. But the Hot Zone is here to help you do something about it. Now, if you want to get a sense for how much we have been able to help people over the past 12 months, we are about to release a coffee table book just in time for Christmas, full of photos from the dozen or so countries that I visited this year. And it's very artistic. There's a lot of very beautiful photos in this coffee table book, but it also tells the story of the different places that I went and introduces you to many of the people that we were able to touch in the process. You guys paid off people's mortgages. You guys built a hospital, completely built a hospital in Burma. You guys paid for other people's medical procedures. You helped one of our viewers here whose dad had a heart attack, and you guys raised a bunch of money for him. If there's one thing that I've learned doing this job for the last 20 plus years, it's that American Christian conservatives are the most generous people group on planet Earth by an order of magnitude, bar none. And all I need to do is bring you a need, is point out a need to you, and you guys go above and beyond to meet that need. And that's one of the reasons why I just love doing this. It's one of the reasons why I'm really excited that in the last year, I've been able to put more and more time into following, into working on the YouTube channel rather than working for other networks as much. I still do, but I'm able to put a lot more time into the YouTube channel because you guys are starting to fund the travel that takes me to these places around the globe. And that means I'm less beholden to the different networks that I work for in order to do this reporting. And in many cases this year, some of you got a chance to come along with me on some of these trips. We took more than 40 people to Israel just a few weeks ago and took them into the war zone, took them right to the border of Gaza, and let them watch airstrikes happening in Gaza. We took them right to the border of Lebanon, let them hear the fighting across the border. And all of that was, due to the viewers like you who have gone and supported us over at chuckholton.com. So I would highly recommend that the coffee table book is going to be available in the next couple of days, probably on Thanksgiving, as a digital download for free for our monthly or annual supporters over at chuckholton.com. So if you're supporting us over there, you're going to get to download and view this coffee table book without having to buy it. If you want to get an actual dead tree copy to put on your actual coffee table, dead tree coffee table, you'll be able to do that. But for our supporters, you'll be able to download and read it if you like, without having to buy it. And so that'll be pretty exciting. Now, we are going to donate the proceeds of the sales of this coffee table book to assisting the group of single mothers and orphaned children that we care for in Colombia. Right now we're up to, oh gosh, it's more than 15 people. It's actually close to 25 people probably that we are supporting in Colombia. These are single mothers and their children, and some of the mothers have been unjustly imprisoned, put in jail just for trying to feed their kids. And so we're supporting their children while we try to help those mothers get out of jail. If you want something to pray about, we are trying to, we're paying the lawyer to try to submit a a motion to get these mothers released before Christmas so that they can go back home to their families. They've been in jail for more than a year, well, almost a year now. And we've been trying for all this time to get them out while we've been supporting their kids. So the proceeds from our coffee table book, from the sales of it, are going to go to supporting those women and, if possible, expanding the number of women that we can help. I have a real heart for single women because I'm a men's writer. You know, I write most of my books pertain to men and are about helping men, shun passivity and become the men that God intended for them to be. And it's just so heartbreaking to see how many women end up in just a terrible place in life because they married a passive man, or they got, hooked up with a guy who just is not the man that God created him to be. And so I've had so many women who have read my books that are written for men contact me and say, I just wish that I could that have read your book 10 years ago, and I wouldn't have made the mistakes that I made by, giving my heart to this man who was terrible to me. And so, I just have a heart for these women. It just breaks my heart. And so it's just a soft spot for me. And Connie and I go down to Colombia a couple times a year and check on these girls. And so there's definitely a lot of need. And if we don't help them, then they're going to try to walk with their kids all the way to the United States and come in illegally across the U.S. southern border. So we are saving the United States that cost and saving these women the terrible experience of trying to get to the U.S. on foot. Okay, so let's see here. I just saw a question go by. Do you think Scott Ritter may have been compromised by the Russians getting his criminal weakness while he's living over there? Yes, I think it's highly possible that Ritter is actually he's on the payroll of Russia Today or somebody like that. If you listen to the stuff that he says about the war in Ukraine, he's every bit as wrong about the war in Ukraine as he is about the war in Israel. And there's no question about that. It's demonstrably, provably wrong when he says that Israel is losing the war. He has been demonstrably, provably wrong with virtually everything he's said about Ukraine since the war started. And so it wouldn't surprise me if he's actually compromised. I don't know. I mean, guys like Patrick Lancaster, who lives in the Donbass region, who is, spouting off Russian talking points, who has literally been present when Ukrainian prisoners of war were tortured and killed. This is a journalist who and has never once come out and denounced any of that. Guys like that, he's got to be on their payroll. If he was actually a journalist in Russia, he would have disappeared a long time ago. And, Ritter is the kind of guy who doesn't go to these places. He just spouts off about these places as if he knows what he's talking about, when he may actually know how wrong he is, but I get the sense that he actually believes his own propaganda. But nevertheless, he has been extremely wrong. Now, Mama Rissa is pointing out my book, Death of Civilization, which you can get now on Amazon And by the way, Mama Marissa, you got a very special copy of Death of Civilization because you ordered it right away off Amazon, and it had a glitch. It had something wrong with the cover art. And so you got the one with the screwed up cover art, which will be a collector's item someday because we've since fixed the cover art so that it is the right size. So hang on to that one, or maybe sell it on eBay. I have about 100 copies of Death of Civilization that are waiting for me at my daughter's house when we get there for Thanksgiving, and I'm going to sign them, and we are going to sell them on Locals. We're going to put them up on Locals, and we're going to give some of them away. But you're going to need to be a supporter over at Locals in order to do that. By the way, if you became a supporter in order to get the download of that book, and you signed up for a monthly $7 a month to become a supporter at Locals, when that $7 comes out next time, if you don't want to be a supporter anymore, I understand. It's fine. You can cancel that at any time on locals.com. No problem. Over at chuckholton.com. But please don't just charge it back on your credit card as if it's fraud. If you see a $7 charge on your credit card, it's not fraud. You signed up to get that book. If you want to get, because I had somebody do that today, and it's a real hassle for us when somebody reports it as fraud because they don't remember, signing up for $7 a month over there. So just in case that's you. Okay, I've got to get going and I catch my connecting flight. So one more time, we'll just very quickly reiterate that what you are seeing in Israel tonight is not a ceasefire. It is a truce that has been agreed to by Israel. And it's just crazy. How can you agree to a truce if the other side hasn't agreed to it? So, that the truce is between Israel and the United States. I mean, it's the United States is not a belligerent party here. So that's just crazy. But they are hoping that by declaring a truce, even without Hezbollah's agreement, that Hezbollah will go along with it, because they're kind of giving Hezbollah an off-ramp here. They know Hezbollah wants to be done with this because this has been far more costly on them than they expected it to be. And so they want it to be done, but they didn't actually agree to a truce. So let's pray that Hezbollah will actually adhere to this, and the people who have been out of their homes for 14 months in the north can go home now. There are more than 60,000 people who have been displaced for over a year, and they want to go home. Wouldn't you? The kids that have been out of school, it's just been really, really difficult and costly for Israel. But in true fashion, it's been more costly in real terms for Hezbollah and Hamas, and as well it should be. So I will go back live again as soon as Tony Bobo says, I disagree, let them break the truce. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. That would just show how unserious they are and would give Israel the chance to hit them some more. However, Tony, like I said, this is good for Israel because it gives them a chance to rest and refit some of their troops, which have been fighting for more than a year. If you look at, for example, like Chaim Mailspin, my friend that's in the engineer unit, he's had very little time off for this whole war. So it'll give them a chance to rest and refit and rearm their troops. And that's a good thing. They need that. It will also let them focus more on finishing the war in Gaza and on whatever they're going to do to Iran, planning for the next phase. So that is not bad for Israel. They weren't going to completely destroy Hezbollah to begin with. That was not one of their goals, and that would be a much longer conflict. But the other thing you have to keep in mind here, if you think that this is a cop-out on the part of Israel, is that Israel still has a tremendous intelligence gathering capability inside Lebanon. As a matter of fact, some of the things that, again, I choose not to talk about on here, they are somewhat out there. They're rumored out there anyway. Some of the technologies that Israel has been employing in Gaza and I'm sure in Lebanon over the past year uh, will give Israel a real leg up on gathering intelligence on what Hezbollah is doing in the future. And Hezbollah knows it. They are so paranoid because they've been so shot through with moles and spies, they think, that they have apparently detained and even executed more than 200 of their own operatives on suspicion of working with the Israelis. So Israel has managed to not only decapitate Hezbollah, but to make them so paranoid in the process that they're looking to, they don't trust anybody. They don't even trust each other at this point. And that is a very good thing. So this isn't all bad. It's just not exactly what we're being told that it is because Hezbollah has not agreed to it. Now, maybe they will. Maybe by the time you watch this, if you come on and watch it after it's live, Hezbollah will have actually agreed to the truce. But as it stands right now, it's a 60-day truce. Israel will leave Lebanon. The southern part of Lebanon will be policed by the Lebanese army and UNIFIL, which it should have been anyway. The Israelis reserve the right to strike at Hezbollah anytime, any place, and they don't have to tell the American military before they do it, but they have agreed to give them a heads up whenever possible, and that's a good deal for them. And in return, Israel will not see their flow of weapons cut off by the United States. They'll continue to get assistance from the Americans. And what you're going to see is the Biden administration crowing like a peacock that they ended the war or something along those lines. But just understand that what they actually did was make an agreement between the United States and Israel and not between the United States and Hezbollah. The Lebanese are in there too, but you get the point. Okay? All right, so I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And again, I will likely be on again tomorrow if anything is worth talking about. And we've got a lot of great stuff coming. So be watching over at chuckholton.com for some posts about the new coffee table book. And I promise you, you're going to love it. The people that have seen it so far have said that it's absolutely spectacular. And there are some really good photos in there. So it'll be fun. We're going to maybe make a tradition out of this and make one of these coffee table books at the end of every year as we go forward, if this one is successful. So, all right, look forward to seeing you again. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.